Good morning and welcome to episode 88 of the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. We're going to make this one an express edition because it's not quiet and it is quiet out there as far
hmm
as like movement and government and stuff goes. Everyone's on school holidays, but we obviously have had a really big news story this week that we'll get to in a minute.
Of course.
But first, how are you doing, Graham?
Good. I'm actually suffering from empty nest syndrome. My son, who's 17, for those of you who know, he has just set off on his first solo road trip around the country in his little Mazda MX-5 with his big bore exhaust, as all 17-year-old boys have on their car, and loaded up chili bin full of cans of Coca-Cola and snacks. And he's trooping around the bottom half of the North Island, I think, as we speak. So it's quite a bit of a nervous moment as a dad. All those different road trips we've done over the years finally coming to some, I hope, degree of fruition of independence.
Now, have you
We'll be in
checked your
there.
wallet to make? Have you checked your wallet to make sure your fuel card's still there?
Oh, he's got his own EPOS card that we top up. Don't you worry, sunshine. He's got that all
All right.
figured
So you my dad never paid for my gas. Jeez.
out.
These
$102 in Hunterville on petrol. We know that much. That was yesterday's
these
expenditure.
spoiled West Auckland children. Jeez. The kids in Remuera don't get that privilege, Graham.
He needs a job. That's what he needs. At least a job that pays money. He volunteers at all these different things, but none of them pay a red razoo. So,
I'm,
of course, the poor guy.
I'm sure
Anyway,
I'm sure there's some aquas out there that need a good wash.
yes, we've been down that path. Yes, but there you are. So that's my week.
Well, I had a fun start to the week. In that
Mm,
I fell down the stairs and AutoTalk magazine, we'd already pushed it back for a few reasons, but it got pushed back a little bit further because a very sore leg and painkillers don't necessarily tie in well with quality journalism. And so, yes, we pushed it a wee bit. Graham's seen the photos. I've done a number. Um,
yeah.
still
Don't
hobbling
show
around.
them. Don't show
Still
them
hobbling
online.
around
No.
five days later. But you carry on. That's what you do as a man. You know, you gotta get out there, look after the kids and all this kind of stuff. I know that our wives probably do far more of this than we do, but still, you know, we've got to make ourselves sound important. So yeah, but the magazine is out now, and yeah, it is quite the magazine. If you haven't had a look yet, then I highly recommend you do. Now, our cover story and a big chunk of the story we've got in there is just an expansion of what we've done previously around our founder Vern Whitehead. Really want people to understand what he did do out there. So that's there. But we've got so much more. We last minute managed to squeeze in a few words about Sir Colin Giltrap, who we'll touch
Mm.
on. We'll talk further about shortly. But we've got a couple of really key stories in there. Now, one of those, and I'm sure, Graham, you're going to have an incredibly strong opinion on it, was my sit down with Jamie Fuller, the interim head of motors at Trade Me, in regards to the repackaging, restructuring, repricing. I don't know what we're calling it now, of the Trade Me Motors packages. And yeah, that. Go on, Graham. I'm sure you've got an opinion.
Look, it's easy to have an opinion and be wrong. But from an industry perspective, okay, so I'm talking on behalf of all the dealers that we interact with on a daily basis. I don't hear anybody being happy. One of the things, and I've said this in the show last week, is that it's about timing and it's about presentation. And I think in this case, they've got it badly wrong. Trade Me's got it badly wrong about how it's presented to the dealers. Like, congratulations, good news. Going to charge you a whole lot more money for less, but we're going to dress it up so it looks like you're getting a bit more for more, but less, but more. And I think there was so much confusion between the sell of the product. And it doesn't matter whether it's a good, bad, or indifferent product. I thought the way that it was pitched to the trade and also pitched effectively as a fait accompli, because you've got no other alternative when it comes to marketing, right? I thought was badly timed and badly sounded out. So there's a lot of really upset people out there. And they're upset not just because dealers like to complain, because of course we like to complain, but genuinely at the moment, honest to God, if you don't know this, you're under a rock. The trade is in dire straits. There's not a lot of money out there. Numbers are down. Sales numbers are down. Profit margins are down. I'd argue a lot of dealerships are running really badly in the red, if not close to the red line. So everyone's watching the dollars and cents really carefully. And if there was ever a bad time to come and say, congratulations, we're about to you as well, this was not it. It was really badly timed and badly sold. And I'm just waiting to come in the front door and say, hey, I'm a dealer, and I think this is a really good idea, Graham. What are you talking about? Because no one has.
I have spoken to one dealer who thinks it was a good idea, but they're a larger dealer group. And yeah, it does work to an extent for them, but even they're realistic to the fact that their bill is going to rise by a lot, a lot. I mean, did you know there's dealer groups out there with bills well over $100,000 a month, and some of them under this new structure could be hitting $200,000 a month. $200,000 a month.
Well, if you've got to amortize that against your weekly or monthly sales, and I noticed that somewhat interestingly, TradeMe did actually use as an example about what your per vehicle cost would use. But we're not looking at a marketplace that a year ago. We're looking at a marketplace today. We're selling less cars. So not only is the individual costing you more, but amortized against your monthly sales, it's even worse. Again, not happy.
Yeah. Look, I think there's interesting stuff there. I understand what they're trying to do, and I think that I think super features were probably a bad idea the second they were thought of many years ago, because the system that they've introduced is really the same system. Sorry, Jamie. Sorry, TradeMe. It's the same structure. It's just without super features. That's the reality. That's all they've done.
Yes.
They've cancelled super features. They're sure they've added a few extra things in the pot at the same time, but the system itself is the same 5-tier structure under different names. And super features I think were the problem, and super features now been taken away. And TradeMe has to get that revenue they were getting on super features from somewhere, so that money's got to go into the 5-tier structure. The problem you've got then is why, and I'll quote back to the example we're looking at, do we start seeing, I think in the main case we looked at, to keep, I wouldn't even say necessarily the same prominence. So we're going, I think the case study we're looking at was 20 super features on a second or third tier level, and the suggestion was going up to get a similar kind of coverage up to like the second tier, maybe. No, but it was about anyway. To get even remotely the same kind of coverage, it was a 30% gain, and it still wasn't the same direct level of coverage. So yeah, that's a tricky one. And I say it in the story, and I said this to Jamie too when we interviewed her. And look, to be fair to Jamie, TradeMe fronted on this. They did want to talk about it. They understand there is some issues out there. The devil in the detail is going to come in next year's earnings, or when they're announced in March. How much are we going to see the sales rise? And even probably more, the accurate picture is going to be the year after. Now, I don't begrudge TradeMe's earnings rising year on year on year, and if we see 10%, it to go up 10% in March, then yeah, this has been a relatively fair thing, and that they've restructured, they've made people pay for prominence, that kind of thing. If we see that it's gone up 30%, then I think people can then be critical of what it is, but I think people do need to perhaps be a little bit, maybe wait and see to see what the sums actually add up to in the end. It's a tricky thing. But that's if what TradeMe is doing, what TradeMe say they are doing, which is essentially reshuffling the game to make sure that you can pay for prominence. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
I remain to be convinced, to be honest. I really do. And again, I come back to it. Timing is terrible. And the way that you have to pay so much money for that level of prominence now, to me also is it's stepped out of the realm of where most everyday traders in New Zealand would see themselves as being able to play.
Look, well, I'm going to put this out there to the world, TradeMe. If someone there is listening and wants to come on the show and debate this with Graham, then the invite's there.
Put me on the spot, right?
So
and I don't have all the numbers to hand either. Don't look at me, Richard. I haven't got all the numbers written down here. You have. I haven't. But
now the other really interesting story that we've got up there is Hamilton EV. So we discussed this before, but Nicholas Down, the liquidator, has hired a private investigator to confirm that whether he actually is in or out of the country, because we've had a couple of calls now for people saying he's in the country. They've given us some tips as to where that might be. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting.
That's one to
He won't talk.
watch.
He won't talk. Cards on the table. He will not talk to me. He's willing to talk to one of my staff. But he won't talk to me because he feels I've been a bit harsh on him online. We'll see. Yeah. So yeah, a whole bunch of other stuff in there. Talk about automotive visas, and yeah, some other great news there. But let's touch on to the one we managed to squeeze in very last minute, and that is the passing of industry icon Sir Colin Giltrap. So Sir Colin passed away at the age of 84, surrounded by family. Obviously, he had had some ill health that we discussed late last year. He had a fall in London. We'd heard recently he'd been, I guess the term would be medically evacuated back out to New Zealand. So yes, they've asked for privacy while they work out what the plans are for his farewell. And I imagine that will be a very, very substantial farewell because, I mean, just looking online today, he clearly was very well known around the place, very well liked by many people, and the impact of Sir Colin and Lady Jenny, particularly in the charity space, in the philanthropic space. The philanthropic space is massive. You know, we're seeing a lot of charities posting up today statements about Sir Colin, such was the impact that he's had on those people, on those organizations. So yeah, a great loss to the industry, and a few people have already called with stories coming out of the woodwork of great things he's done, or some of the interesting things that were done back in the days. He had a bit of certainly some more characterful moments in his earlier years in the trade. And yeah, we're hoping we can capture some of those for the next issue of AutoTalk magazine. Were you ever exposed to Sir Colin, Graham? Did you ever bump into him anywhere? Or
No, and I didn't. And I regret that too, because I was just going to say, gosh, if ever the industry had a legend in its own right, it would be Sir Colin. I think you can argue we're probably not going to see someone with that degree of larger-than-life stature again in our lifetimes, at that formative stage of the automotive industry in New Zealand. And he's just had his finger in, it seems, every single pie. Funny enough, actually, I was just talking to my uncle by marriage. I caught up with him just yesterday, popped down for a visit. And he told a little story about how he, I think it must have been in the 80s, I think, in the Schofield's day, and he'd gone for an interview for Schofield's, and he actually turned up in Sir Colin's office for the interview. It wasn't necessarily about Schofield's, but they got to the end of the interview and he said it was just a really rat-a-tat, matter-of-fact, call it how it is interview. And then while I was there, Sir Colin picks up the phone and calls Schofield's and says, "I'm sending this guy PJ down to you. You're going to hire him." And that was that. And I think that's, I'm sure you've heard so many stories about the man. Yeah, legend.
Well, I mean, one of the things I'd heard from a few years back from the dealer principal at the Audi dealership was that Colin still liked to get out on the floor. He would. Well, this was a few years back, and I'm not sure whether he's done it in the last couple of years, but for a long time, even once, he was well up there as chairman of the group and distributors and all sorts of stuff like that. He'd still go down, pull up a chair in the dealer principal's office or on the bullpen at some of these dealerships and sit there and watch what was happening. And I think that's something common we see. You see some of these, and I hate using the word, but some of these veteran dealers, these guys who started out buying and selling cars, literally, they never want to give it up. And there's so many multi-millionaire former car dealers who are in their 70s and 80s that I know of, who are well and truly retired, who will still pop up buying and selling cars once in a while because I think it's in their blood.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's the way with Colin. Obviously, he's passed it on to his boys, Richard and Michael, and they are obviously doing very well in their own right in the business. So yeah, a big impact, a big mark. His name's going to be around for a very long time, we think. So It will obviously be interesting to see what Michael and Richard do ongoing with the group now. Obviously we could see change within the group once things settle down. Different ideas come through. Who knows? But certainly an interesting time of the trade, and the passing of a very, very iconic person within the trade. I bumped into Sir Colin a few times. Generally, I think I mentioned this in my story that I've or my social media post I put out there. I don't really have had any massively long conversations with Colin, but he knew who I was, and he would you'd bump into him at the hallways of EMD or wherever, and it'd be hello, quick how's things. So yeah, and I've heard since from other people's comments, he was one of these people that could remember and recognize who people were very well and pick up on things, and that was great. And one of the most heartening things we had, and again, something I mentioned on social media, was back when we started AutoTalk. We were building something quite different to what had been done before, in that it was digital. We started off digital, and people were used to magazines that were pretty much only paper then in regards to automotive trade. And we got a call from his assistant at the time, just wanting some help because she was printing out web articles and PDFs of the magazine for Colin to read, and there was some issue with the PDF or something like that, and that was brilliant. That we thought, Sir Colin there, sure, he may not have been consuming it as an online article at the time, but he was getting the stuff presented to him. We thought that was such a really cool thing. So yes, we obviously there'll be more coverage of that to come. That's going to be a story that'll take a few more weeks to play out. Now, a few more stories to run through today, and we're starting off in the no Sherlock Stakes. Vehicle spending down. Only 2.2% in March. Retail spending on motor vehicles was down 2.2% to 204 million for the March period compared with February 2024 figures. There's a drop of 4.5 million and was among the biggest retail category drops alongside apparel, which was also down 2.2 million to 329 million. Fuel was down 1.4% to 529 million for the month. Overall spending in the retail industries decreased 0.7% to $6.5 billion. Which is those statistics always follow each other, because if car sales go down, spending on repairs and parts goes up.
I've never actually thought about that or equated to that, Richard, but it's a really good point.
Yep.
And at the bottom end of the market, what we're seeing at the moment is the rise and the rise and the rise, the value of older trade-ins. And we're seeing very few older trade-ins turning out to be presented at dealerships by comparison, because people are just hanging on to stuff. They're spending money on stuff to keep it on the road rather than trading it in and moving on up. It's certainly interesting times.
So one follows the other there. Interestingly, that is down less than the volumes are down, which means that probably the prices are up or the margins are down. I'm trying to work out where my head sits on that. Anyway, right. Let's run through another couple of things. Euro 4 border checks cut off April 29. VIA is reminding all members of the used import industry that any Euro 4 vehicles purchased for export to New Zealand must be border checked in Japan by April 29, 2024. This includes all Japanese vehicles with emissions coded AXX, BXX, CX, CXX plus DXX, and others manufactured before 2012. Dealers must ensure their overseas agent presents such cars to the TRS in Japan so they can be border checked. Now, the fun thing with these kind of dates is someone's going to push it. Someone's going to push it and then say, my ship is late. Can I get them across the line?
No. They're not, because it's border checks.
No, they'll still say that, though.
Yeah, but this is the whole point why the industry lobbied for years.
Because someone always does.
And dare I say that the masters at such halls of corridors of power and the NZTA and others know full well now. One of the reasons why the trade lobbied around having border checks was because it made the case very clear that it was far easier to manage the process of border checking in Japan than it was to use the age-old excuse that the boat was late, the dog ate my bill of lading, the customs guys were on strike, the transporter didn't turn up. the border checkpoint, and particularly, and it was very useful at a time when shipping was in a crisis, and you could. There were all sorts of issues around getting cars on boats and boat presentation and things too. So the industry lobbied for this effectively, and I think very successfully. So the border check date, if your cars are late for the border check in Japan, it's a bit like the old dog ate my lunch. No one's really listening, I wouldn't think.
Someone's going to say there were leaves on the tracks or something, or whatever. Because and look, I'm not criticizing anyone. Look, it's business, but it's the old deal, isn't it? Is that how long can you leave your buying at auction? You know, if you wait that extra day, will there be a few more of these cars that now all the other Kiwis are out of the market? That price will drop a little bit further. Do you take the risk of getting them through? Happens every time.
Hey, Richard, have you bought the e-ruck for your hybrid, your EV yet?
Nope.
Speaking of pushing it,
but I will be. But I will be. Well, no, because I know the exact time I can safely buy my ruck. I
guarantee to you, if you're buying cars in Japan, you know damn well how long it takes the car from the auction house to the war facility, and you've got your guys lined up saying, "Don't worry about those ones," because that's exactly what happens. But these ones are your priority today, and
yes.
that'll be happening. And
you always know there is one person that will try and do that the day after the safe line. You know it, I know it. It's just that the location of where that's being pushed is shifting now. That's all. And hey, look, as I said, not criticizing. I think it is not hilarious. I think it is clever business, and some people measure the risk around these things, and that's where they make a slightly juicier margin. We see it every time. I think it's smart.
Why have a date then? You know, why have this sort of soft, fuzzy bit in the middle? A date is a date. It's either compliant up to that point and it's not after that, or you've got some sort of fuzzy bit in the middle. It's the Lemmy from Motorhead principle, Rich. Have you heard of that? Okay, so Motorhead, Lemmy, famously once when they were up for massive fines for a concert where they'd blown out every single decibel rating in the suburbs, all the windows had cracked or something, and they said, "Why did you turn all your amps up to 10? He said, "Well, because if the amplifier wasn't meant to be turned up to 10, why did it have 10 on the dial?"
Yeah. Hey, look, I as I said, I'm not criticizing. I think it's one of the beauties of the trade is that people will look for lines like that. It's like I've been to auctions with dealers that will specifically go around looking at grade 3s to double check that they really are a grade 3 and not a gem in disguise. Mm-hmm. And that's where they make their money. And it's to say people will take any opportunity you give them. Good on them. Good on them, I say. So yes.
Thank you. Laugh a look, we were in business, but thank you very much for putting that out.
Well, sorry, what was that?
I said last look, we were in business. You know, I'd like to say we're reasonably smart people. We do have we're doing okay. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
I wouldn't suggest that you guys are the ones doing that, because Croydon Wholesalers in Henson, they sell the finest of Twitter Aquas and nothing else.
We do, actually. I can tell you some stories there too across the paddocks, but no.
I'm not being facetious there either. They really do have nice Twitter Aquas. Yeah.
Thank you for the plug.
Yes.
Right.
Now, Ingham Motor Group secures a Isuzu Ute franchise. The Ingham Group says as of April 15, its Hamilton-based Hyundai dealership has become a dual franchise site. The dealership has been rebranded as Ingham Hamilton, and it will sell the Isuzu Ute brand in addition to Hyundai passenger and light commercial vehicles. Dealer principal Greg Renner said the decision to incorporate Isuzu Ute into the dealership offering stems from understanding the varied requirements and preferences of the local community. I.e., you're not really going to do that well in Hamilton without a Ute.
Correct.
Yes. And Isuzu's not a bad Ute. You'd have an Isuzu, wouldn't you?
I've got a Mustang, so yeah, you're right. Actually, they're actually quite a nice little product. I'm not a plug here, but I do cast my eye over the Ute offerings, and I thought that the later generation of those Isuzu Utes are actually not bad. They're not bad at all. They're certainly probably a couple of clicks above in their build quality and their offering than the price tag suggests, which is no bad thing.
Go look at the Isuzu price tag these days. They are a premiumly priced Ute these days, Graham. They're no longer a budget option. Premium.
Is any of those first two Utes, are they premium? Are they budget pricing? No.
If I was wanting if I was wanting the most reliable, solid ute out there, I would say the Isuzu would be pretty much near the top of the tree. If you want a genuine workhorse, that engine's it's basically a truck engine, derived from a truck engine. It's a solid donk, and they're a solid built vehicle. And I hear you hear some issues about certain utes out in the market. I hear very few issues about those Isuzus. Other than the price on the piece of paper on the window can be a smidge higher.
All the Australian guys that, all the user groups in Australia that take these things out in the middle of the outback and spend 19 days running up and down waterfalls, they generally have a really good rep for their durability and reliability. So, there we go. So, not a bad choice for the brand, perhaps.
Yes. Now, Minister confirms emissions rule change, and thanks VIA CEO. So we've covered this a couple of times before, so we'll just touch on it briefly. The issue where basically vehicles covered by the new emissions rule had to be registered within 4 months. It is gone by lunchtime. Was that John Key would say, or Stephen Joyce, or who said gone by lunchtime?
That was a John Keysm, I think, wasn't it?
I think
we've almost forgotten that one. Yeah.
So that has been ended, and the minister, actually, this is a very rare thing, called out Greg Epps and thanked him for his work on that. So that is a interesting thing there to see that the new VIA boss seems to be having a bit of a effect out there in the market. I don't think I've very rarely seen a minister thanking a head of an association in that same way. Have you?
Yes, in my time within the old IMVIA, we did. I don't know about public plaudits, but then this government is a little bit different about how they portray themselves and what sort of message they're sending out. But the key point here, I think, was that VIA took the issue immediately and had a very, I suppose, pragmatic and forward approach to the ministry and worked, I think, behind the scenes. There was a hell of a lot of work done really quickly and presented good, concise, sound arguments without running from the treetops and announcing that the government was inept. So it was a really well thought through, structured approach, and it got the result that everyone wanted. The government weren't made to look like fools, which is obviously always the job of any ministerial advisor, is to knock back anything that might make the minister look inept. It doesn't always work, as we know. And so for that, I think VIA deserves all the plaudits for actually doing it properly, concisely, presenting it in a way that there was a win for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now, I desperately need to know who said that. Who said that quote? It was Don Brash.
Oh, right. Okay, there we are.
It was Don Brash, and he was saying that National would scrap the ban on nuclear-powered ships.
Good Lord, there's a name for my political past.
His political career went incredibly well after that, apparently.
I was at the, I know we're not on a time thing here, but I was actually at the election night. Which one was it that he lost? I'm trying to think now. Which year was that? Good Lord, was that 2002, 2005? When did Don Brash lose the election? Which year was
about
that?
Then.
And it was at the Alexandra Park. And I've never seen a man looking so despondent at the end of it. Like, it was one of those election nights. It could have gone either way, as I recall. And at the end of it, it's like all the sausage rolls suddenly went cold really quickly. He just looked like he was broken.
Oh, no. Poor fella. Poor fella.
The bar tab suddenly went closed.
Yes. And on that note, we'll close the bar tab on this. Now, next week, we're going to try and put together a show, but it's going to be 5 in the frickin' morning for me, or 4.
Oh, dear. Oh, you poor little lad.
I'll be in, I think, Wuhu, China. So, but let's attempt a show next week, because it starts to become a little trickier over the next couple of months as you and David swan around the America, doing various things. So yeah, look, thanks everyone for joining us for just a quick one today. Don't forget, go and download that magazine. It is free. Also, and we had to boot this out of the magazine because we had to make space, unfortunately, for Sir Colin. AutoTalk Live It's looking real good. Now we have a couple of we have a change in that Neeraj Lala unfortunately has had to pull out. He is flying off to Japan about the same time, and so Warren Wilmot has stepped into his seat at the conference. Now Warren is quite the character, current brand manager for BYD New Zealand, and I think we're going to have a little bit of fun with that one. I think we're sold out of tables. We have one table left. We're actually looking at restructuring to provide a few more tables. There's plenty of theatre seats left, but no one wants to go alone. Buy a table with some mates and come along, the 8 of you. Yeah, it's pretty good value, I think. AutoTalk. Sorry?
I'm going to say, right now, if you're in business in the auto trade and you're having a bit of a shit week or two, you're thinking, oh man, trade's down. What am I going to do? Buy tickets to this damn thing, because I'll tell you what, it'll either give you a whole lot of new ideas on what you're either doing wrong or what you could do better, or it'll lift your spirits, one of the two, or at the very least, it's good food and drink as well. But honestly, stuff like the events like this should be in your toolbox. Things we do when it gets a little bit tough to try and help us out of the poo, things like this.
Yep.
Buy your tickets.
Yes. Please do. And autotalk.co.nz/live. I finally fixed the weird data shoot that was on the website. It was interesting. We had a big flurry of tickets to start, had a steady run since then. Then last week, everyone jumped on it. We sold a whole pile more tables. So, really getting exciting now. That is May 7th. So that is only 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away. So, we will look forward to seeing everyone there. And we can recreate some of those nights with the rock stars down in the basement having drinks afterwards. Right, that's it for this week. We'll catch you next week for the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap.